Tag TV and Tag Radio be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. Tag TV, Tag Radio, there's a lot more to know. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. We're speaking softly because right now the Final Four are finishing their presentations on stage at the IBM Hillside Auditorium. In fact, moments from now, the winner of the GRA Tag Business Launch Competition will be announced. Be awarded $50,000 in cash and somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 in a suite of services package. Be sure to check out all of Tag's social media locations for post and up-to-the-minute tweets as the live event continues to unfold and the winner is announced. Greetings, everyone. It's the big day, Tuesday, May 24th, 2011. It all began this morning at 7 a.m. A special GRA Tag Business Launch Edition continues as Tino speaks with each of the finalists just before today's live event. In fact, with rehearsals and event planning at the IBM Auditorium, keeping Tino and his team busy right up to the last minute, I'm your guest host, Frank Baia, with the conclusion of the Tech Talk 4-part GRA Tag Business Launch finalist interviews. In prior editions of this special Tech Talk series, Tino has introduced you to, up close and personal, GRA Tag Business Launch finalists Socket and VisitTech. On today's Tech Talk 2-parter, first, it's Pindrop Security. And as we continue our finalist interviews of today, we meet the entrepreneur behind Audit My Books Analyzer. First, we visit Pindrop Security, the vision of Vijay Balasubramaniyan. The technology is largely based on his PhD work at the Georgia Tech Information Security Center. As recipient of the Microsoft Trustworthy Scholar Award, Vijay has published his research at leading conferences and has patents on voice-over IP security and scalability. Third in a business launch series, Security of Your Phone, how advanced recognition and unique personality patterning of each telecommunication device will change everything from data security to financial transactions as we meet GRA Tag Business Launch Competition finalist Vijay Balasubramaniyan, co-founder Pindrop Security. Vijay, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thank you for having me, Frank.
Well, I can only imagine the excitement's got to be mounting. We're getting down to the 11th hour. For our listeners, you'll be actually going into battle tomorrow, starting at about 7 o'clock in the morning. Actually, it'll be today, actually, by the time they hear this recording. Tell us a little bit about your feelings as far as the GRA Business Launch Competition, going through all of the process of the evaluation, and then being announced as one of the finalists and actually making the Final Four. I mean, that's pretty exciting stuff, Guy.
Absolutely, Frank. It's really exciting to be a part of the Tag Business Launch Competition. And it's been a long process, but the brilliant thing about this entire process is that at each stage we've gotten more and more visibility, and it's opened out a whole bunch of doors to us, because at each stage you have very, very good judges judging your pitch. So at each stage we get more and more introductions. So I think it's been a great process, and it's going to culminate tomorrow with an audience of over 100 people, and we're really excited to be there.
Pindrop Security, I know it's largely based on your PhD work at Georgia Tech Information Security Center. I guess we'd be remiss in not saying that I would think security and the whole evolution of technology within that space, it's kind of in the DNA over there since ISS and some of the root heritage of the beginnings of that company coming out of the owners and starters of that organization being at Tech at the time.
Absolutely. I mean, when I first came here, I had some security background, but I was amazed to find how much security is in the DNA of Georgia Tech. We have a very big center, the Georgia Tech Information Security Center, which completely focuses on a lot of the security issues facing the world today. And as a matter of fact, some of my first research work was funded by ISS and AT&T and a whole bunch of these organizations that have made it their bread and butter to work on security issues. And that's why, it's such a great thing to be here at Georgia Tech.
Well, now they're even saying that we're in the last Georgia Technology Summit, we focused on where Georgia leads, and information security and internet security is one of the big industries now as far as a vertical, growing and spreading out not just through ISS and AT&T, but a lot of startups similar to your situation. Let's talk a little bit. I got to tell you that I believe, according to the information, your goal is to reinstate trust back into the telephone. And I had to choke when I read that because I said, what is a telephone? But, I know that there are mobile digital devices anymore, but tell us a little bit about the mission to reinstate trust back to the telephone.
That's a great question, Frank. The fact is that a lot of us have grown up trusting the telephone. It's a direct connection to anybody that you want to talk to. And it's not only individuals, it's big organizations that use the telephone to actively converse with their customers. And the problem is that over time, this trust in the telephone has been largely misplaced. And the reason is that there are a lot of technologies that have grown, that have evolved to make the telecommunication network as it is right now. So like you joked about the telephone, there are actually, three forms of telecommunication devices. You have, the old landlines that people use in residences and businesses to make phone calls. You have cell phones, which allow you to make calls while you're mobile. And you have the new kid on the block, voice over IP, which allows you to make inexpensive calls all across the world. And the point is, though these technologies have evolved separately, there is no common thread between them. So things like identity are specific to each and every one of these technologies. So for example, on the cell phone and on the landline, you have caller ID, or that number that flashes on your screen, to provide identity, while on a Skype phone, you have what's known as the Skype ID. And the fact is that none of these technologies intermingle with each other. And the biggest issue here is that, for example, when I use my Skype phone and call my brother, the number that flashes on a screen is either unknown or 000123456. Something completely useless is that. And this is the biggest problem. Everybody trusts the telephone, and yet some basic qualities of the telephone, like identification, are no longer valid. And this is the reason why Pindrop Security is out to reinstate trust back to that telephone.
So now we're beginning to, I always think in terms of a funnel. Big idea begins to narrow down as you're getting to the point. Point Pindrop does, what exactly is the solution, and maybe give us an idea of the competitive advantage that technology has, say, of other products that might be in the space.
Yeah, so what Pindrop does is essentially it's based off my research, which kind of showed that every single phone call has a fingerprint embedded within the call. To understand this better, I use one of my favorite analogies, which is playing an instrument. Do you play an instrument, Frank?
A little rough on the guitar, but yes.
Okay, that's perfect. So we'll take the guitar, and I play the electric guitar. And the fact is that every single guitar has a very unique sound quality that it adds to a particular tune you're playing. So, people who have an Ibanez guitar say it sounds very warm and fuzzy, whereas people like myself who have a Fender Stratocaster say it sounds very jazzy. And so it's the instrument that adds this very prominent sound quality to the tune you're playing. Similarly, if you heard a Fender Stratocaster from within a room, you'd hear a muffled sound. So essentially, where you hear it from and what instrument is playing dictates what you finally hear. The funny thing is, our research has shown the same holds true for phone calls too. The phone device actually making the call and the path that phone call takes adds a very specific quality to the call. And it is this quality that we measure, extract, and create a fingerprint out of. So that when we get that phone call again, and we look at the quality that's added to it, we say, it's the same phone that had the same flavor, and so we can uniquely identify that phone. So using this technology, we can uniquely tag every phone in the world and say, this is Frank's phone calling, or this is Vijay's phone calling.
So then you'll also provide names so that we can call our phone by a human name, because it's beginning to sound more like a friend than it does a device. By the time that it builds that kind of personality, it actually has a somewhat of, true, like a personality within itself is really what you're describing, correct?
Absolutely. You can call it a phonoid like an Android, and it works perfectly well. And the biggest there was another question that you asked, what was the competitive advantage that this technology had over others. There are primarily three kinds of technologies out there. There are ones that continue to use caller ID, and because caller ID is so broken, anything that those technologies provide can no longer be trusted. You have other technologies like device fingerprinting, which work only on IP or the internet, but do not work on landlines or cell phones. And finally, you have voice biometrics, which the largest problem is that every time the customer has a cough or a cold, the algorithms get thrown off. Our technology, is better in all these three respects. We are more secure, we work across all devices, and finally, we're able to be more consistent than, these voice biometric solutions. And there's one big advantage that we have, and that is the ability to protect calls both ways. That is, when you're receiving a call and when you're making out a call, in both these cases, since audio is present, we can actually detect whether the call coming in is coming from the right person and the call going out is going to the right person. And this is something that none of the other technologies provide.
Now, again, I was joking about calling it a telephone, but I can see it being involved in, say, for example, financial transactions, and obviously the security that comes out of that kind of personal identification, being able to meet with the validation of that personality so that it can actually transact?
You're perfect there. Financial transactions are actually our best market opportunity. And this is because financial institutions use the phone for a variety of things. So, for example, only yesterday I got my credit card that was replacing my old credit card. And all that, the instructions on that credit card said, call from a home phone and we'll activate the credit card. So what the bank does on its end is it looks at the caller ID of the calling phone and says, it's coming from Vijay's home phone, and therefore we'll go activate it. Now think of the situation that, a thief just steals your mail, has this credit card, goes ahead, uses one of these caller ID spoofing software, and then activates your credit card. Now he can buy all the books from Amazon, he can go order a whole bunch of party items from Party City, and the list is endless. And this is the scenario that you're talking about.
Well, and obviously everything evolves. I mean, what you're talking about is the way it could be applied right now, but certainly as time goes on, I know friends of mine now are scanning their checks and they're actually making deposits using the phone. So the idea of what do they call fintech now, and the possibilities that it plays in the financial technology industry, it's got to be huge. Let's talk a little bit. Well, our time is getting short, and I would be remiss not bringing in, especially with the GRA Business Launch Competition, the whole concept of being an entrepreneur. From your perspective, tell us some of the unique challenges of being an entrepreneur, especially just out of school.
Right. So being a technology entrepreneur, someone who's just fresh out of school, we tend to get very besotted by how cool the technology is. And the biggest challenge that I've faced is being able to do proper diligence towards the business model, being able to realize how real a problem is. The good thing is with Pindrop's technology, it's cool technology solving a really big problem. And the only way to identify what the real pain point is by talking to customers. And this is something that I've learned the hard way. We started off with a pretty vague business model, but after talking to a whole bunch of banks, we started making our business model much more concrete. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges that technology entrepreneurs fresh out of school face, that they don't speak enough to customers.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, startups with strong technologies have an advantage from your perspective in bootstrapping and the all-important seeking venture capital and seed capital backing. I mean, obviously, strong technologies, like you say, you didn't use the term, but I would say have a wow factor. Kind of neat. Gee, that's really cool. But what is its market viability? What are the competitive situation? Where does it fit in terms of the evolution of other hybriding of other competitors that we hadn't even thought about, and those kind of questions that are going to impact a return on investment?
Right. So the advantage with a really cool technology is if you figure out how real the pain point is, that once you have a cool technology, it's easy getting funding. So one typical example is the National Science Foundation Small Business Innovation Research Grant, which is given out to good technology solving big problems. And this is essentially, in the first phase, it gives out close to $150,000 equity free. And so that's some real money that helps you get going if you have cool technology and a hard problem to solve. And the one cool thing is Pindrop Security is we've applied to a National Science Foundation SBIR grant, and we're close to we've been recommended for it, so it's pretty good news.
Well, it's pretty exciting. I mean, obviously, it's not only the money, but it's even the validation that comes from the recognition. Okay, we've talked about a lot of good things. Now maybe go into the other side. What about the obstacles? What have you had to overcome in this regard?
The biggest thing is, realizing how real your solution is. And you need to really talk to customers. You really need to understand when to get investment. And one big advantage that we've had in facing those obstacles is we've put together a great team. So one of our early mentors, and now finally somebody who's joined the team, is Paul Judge, who is a successful entrepreneur who, had key leadership roles from inception to acquisition of two security startups, Cypher Trust and PureWire. And he's been helping us, fine-tune the business model, realizing when we're ready for an investment, because these are two very, very critical things that most technology startups will face.
Well, by this time tomorrow, you're going to be, while this is being aired, you'll be in the middle of the competition. Obviously, best of luck. I don't know how much luck has got to do with it when you're talking about such great innovations and technology ideas that you're presenting here, such solutions. You know what I was just thinking, Vijay, is that we're talking to you now going into the GRA Tag Research Competitive Business Launch Competition. In a year from now, I may be hearing about your exit strategy and about going public, and we'll say, we knew you when. And I'll have to be able to ask you back again to Tech Talk and hear about the success that you guys have been having.
Absolutely. That would be a wonderful way of having another conversation.
Well, Vijay, again, thank you so much for all of it. Well, I'll tell you what, for the exciting commitment that you've made to your vision, to the entrepreneurship that you're showing and demonstrating in the competition. And again, best of luck and great opportunities from tomorrow and beyond. Thank you so much for taking time to join us today on Tech Talk.
Thank you so much, Frank. It's been my pleasure talking to you and your audience.